like if you actually take a step back and you beg the question, what is Trent Alexander-Arnold's best position? And you would have to pose it in a way to understand that positions in football are meaningless outside of system. I just want to point out that the two other teams that are also playing box midfield in this league, Arsenal, have conceded 11 goals in 14 games. Right?
How many have we conceded?
We've conceded 14 goals in 14 games.
Okay. And how many have City conceded?
16 goals in 14 games.
Oh, you beauty! What a headshot! What a head!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to American LFC. I am Nate, and we're talking to my brother, Eli. How you feeling?
Good. How are you?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. Today we are talking about Liverpool Football Club playing Fulham this past weekend. We'll probably talk about LASK a little bit, but I think the real meat of the story is probably going to be Fulham, but we'll get around to it. I do want to just say a disclaimer really quickly to the thousands of people watching this. Eli and I were supposed to be at this game at Anfield. We had tickets to go see this event live, in person, in Liverpool, a city in England, otherwise known as Scouseland. Unfortunately, because of the construction on the Anfield Road end, there was some pretty malicious scalping situation that was going on that actually ended up not allowing us to have tickets, which deterred us but did not defeat us. We're still looking to get tickets for the back half of the season, and we will do that, and we will be excited to talk to all of you about our experience of going to Anfield once again. But I did just want to say that, wow, what a game that we were supposed to be seeing. Technically, we were supposed to be in the Cup. We had tickets in the Cup, but that ended up not happening.
So I think, again, some consumer advice to our thousands of listeners is, so obviously we got our tickets initially through one of the online resellers. When I purchased the tickets, it indicated that the seats were in the Cop. And then 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, I got an email from that reseller that said, hey, your tickets have been canceled. They're unavailable. And then I was like, okay, the only reason that happened is because the tickets were actually in the Anfield Road Inn that is under construction. So these tickets were kind of falsely advertised. It was supposed to be me and Nathan and our dad and my oldest son as kind of like a birthday thing for me. But then after that all fell through, we looked into the process of getting tickets through the club, right, to try and do it above board, and learned that in order to enter the ballot or register interest in a game, every person that you're registering interest for has to also be a member, right? So for four of us, that's 200 pounds up front just to maybe get a ticket. Whereas if you roll the dice with the reseller, those 200 pounds are almost an entire ticket that is, I guess, marginally more guaranteed.
Marginally, because the thing is, obviously it didn't work out on our favor this time, but we've had positive experiences before. We did go to Anfield before. We've had the experience of seeing a game live in Anfield. What an unbelievable privilege. So it worked before. We just caught a bad wave, caught a bad break on this one, and I think we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna get there by the end of the season, and if not, we'll go next season, and it'll be fine.
So if any of our thousands of listeners have made the trip to a game in England, maybe comment below with, how you got your tickets, how your travel went, any advice you may have, because it's been 5 years since we did this.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So. The last time our tickets were about 200 pounds sterling a piece.
Yeah.
And now we looked at it this time, and those same tickets are almost 1,200 pounds. So it's just
for a single ticket.
A single ticket, right? So one ticket costs more than all four did last time. But as I told Dad, I was like, I guess that's what winning every trophy in that time span gets you, right?
Yeah, the truth is we did go before they really won anything. Yeah, it was like Klopp's third season there.
I think third maybe because it was 2017. I think so. It was March of 2017. Sure. Well, what year did you get married there, good sir?
2018.
Oh, so it would have been March of 2018 then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's 5 years, not 6.
Yeah.
But it was cool because it was a Newcastle game at Anfield when Rafa was the Newcastle manager. So we got to see Rafa. I got a picture with some Scouse dude named Steven.
Yeah.
And
Gerard, I guess.
I guess Gerard. I've never heard of him. And then we got to see Salah and Mane score goals in the Anfield Road end in the first half.
Yeah, which was super dope.
Super cool. Turned out those guys are both really good.
Yeah. And the experience is great, which is why we're super excited. It's like why we can't be defeated by the fact that we hit a little bit of a road bump while we're trying to get tickets for this. And look, it is really difficult for Americans trying to get tickets to games abroad. It is just really difficult, and it's really expensive. And as much as we want to complain about it and as much as we want to moan about it, there are reasons why it's difficult for people outside of the country to get tickets, and that's because frequently these clubs are prioritizing distribution for locally residing people, and there's an argument that probably should be the case, which is that local people should have the opportunity to be able to get tickets to enjoy the team that they supported, that their granddad supported, that, it makes sense. Like, we can't be too angry about it.
Yeah.
So.
And again, we are in a bit of a privileged position that we will be able to afford to do that, so...
Yeah, 100%. And we're
that's nice.
Super grateful for it. So, but that being said, we were not at the game this weekend, even though we tried our darndest. And what happened in this game? Do you want to talk about LASKs first, or?
I got to be honest. I mean, I watched the last game live, and after yesterday, I don't remember a whole lot about it.
I think that's great. I also don't remember almost anything about it. I remember
that.
We won. I remember that we won.
Mo Salah got 199.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I remember some things happening. I remember, I think we went up 2-0 pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If I remember.
It was like in the first 15 minutes,
Yeah, we were
They really took our criticism to heart from the beginning of the season about how they were so slow out of the gates. They scored 2 in the first 15, and then before the end of the second half, they had a 5-minute spurt where they could have probably added 3 more. I mean, Cody Gakpo on a different day would have had a hat trick in like 20 minutes or something. But we won. That's the important thing. It was a rotated squad, if memory serves. So it's good to, get those players that experience in a big
Harvey
game.
Elliott in the midfield, I believe.
Yeah.
So
I saw a quote from Ian Wright, who is some football guy, saying that if Harvey Elliott gets anywhere close to his potential, that Liverpool will have an absolute player on their hands. And I think he was an Arsenal player, right? So that's saying something.
Yeah, he played for a team called the Arsenal, and I agree. I think everybody's like. I think it's really easy for us to forget the fact that he's like 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because we signed him when he was 16, and almost immediately started rumors around the first team at 16, right?
Yeah.
He ended up going out on loan to Blackburn Rover, if I remember correctly, in which he did really well. I think he scored like a handful of goals at 16 and going on 17 in the championship, which is impressive in and of itself, right? So he got a little steal there, and then he came back, and then he is in the first team setup. He only goes out on loan for 1 season.
Yeah.
At 16, turning 17. So that gives you an idea how good this kid is. Look, when he first arrived, and the position that he is picking up, I didn't say this. There have been comparisons to Messi, right? Because the idea is that he's like sits back. He's playing sort of on the left wing of the midfield. Messi's a little bit more forward than that normally, especially when he was in Barcelona. He's really a right winger, but like the idea is like that's sort of where Harvey Elliott's finding his space. And you can see he does not have the pace of Messi. Let's just be clear. Messi is super fast.
You know what, though?
Especially when he was young.
If I may, Elliott plays defense, so I would take that maybe drop in pace for a person that actually plays defense.
Yeah, for our setup, absolutely. Like, the thing is that it's like, one of the reasons why Klopp started him in every game for the first half of last season was because statistically he has the highest number of pressures of anybody on Liverpool's team.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that he's the tip of the spear. He is what Adam Lallana was when Klopp first showed up. Right? So, he's really important to us. I think that he's going to be an incredible player. I think Ian Wright's correct. I think that the more that he learns, the more he's learning off Salah. Salah's obviously taking him under his wing. It's just going to be interesting to see where he ends up playing. Because the truth is he's not a winger. He's not an 8. He's sort of a 10.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we're playing with our double 8s.
Yeah, with the box
and
midfield.
The box
yeah.
midfield. So, anyway, we're in the weeds.
Yeah,
here,
we got real in the weeds on the last game that we weren't going to talk about.
That's okay. I love it though.
So
shoot. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's get on to Fulham, right? The big story of the past week.
Yeah.
How do you think that game started out?
So, okay, so I rewatched the game today to actually sort of like see what was happening because I only saw the second half live, which was enough of a half to see live.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. My impression coming into the second half when the score was 2-2, and we had a really great spell, and then a really bad spell, and then a really great spell. My feeling was that the first half was going to be emblematic of that as well. But rewatching the first half, I was like, we completely dominated.
Yeah.
Like not even a question. It was just like, it was, we were so wasteful. We were so wasteful in possession, in just so many things. Really.
Well, the one that really kind of I found most frustrating was the amount of passes we gave away moving into the final third, right? It just seemed like for all the chances we did create, there could have been a lot more if the passing had just been a little sharper. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I think that's what I mean by when I was saying that it felt like we were being really wasteful. There were plenty of opportunities. I mean, we started off with such immense pressure against them at the beginning. There were many opportunities, and we just weren't making the right decisions in the final third. And it seemed we were able to pin them back quite a bit, and they had an out. They obviously have the out ball going up their left hand side towards Trent, which everybody's going to do, right? Yep. But man, there were so few opportunities in that half for them that I was like, I was confounded by the fact that I started watching the game and it was 2-2 because we should have had 5 goals. And they should have had no goals.
Yeah, so I did a bit of a deep dive on the Liverpool subreddit this evening, and they were basically there was a thread about Kelleher, right? And really, we have been spoiled by how much Alisson bails us out continually when our defense isn't clicking, right? Because our defense in that game was pretty abysmal against Fulham. You know, I think their expected goals were like 1 point something or low 2s, and they scored 3, you know? So it seems like he doesn't. One person's comment was it seems like Alisson does a lot of marshalling and organizing that you don't really see, right? And keeps the defense a lot sharper, and maybe Kelleher just hasn't grown into that role, or you know, maybe it's not in his locker. And if that's the case, then it's like, you know, do we find another backup? But also it's like, where do you find someone that is a decent goalie that is going to be happy sitting on the bench 85 to 90% of the season. Because Adrian cost us a Europa League final, right? Or was it a Champions League final? No, it was a quarterfinal against. It was a quarterfinal against Atletico
Madrid.
The year after we won, when we were going for the repeat. Yeah, he.
Our first loss at Anfield. I think since Klopp showed up, I can't remember, but it was like we were going for the longest home streak of undefeated. I think.
Yeah.
Or we had it.
Yeah.
And we were like trying to put it out of sight. It was our first loss at Anfield in a long time. Anyway.
Yeah. Sorry.
I agree with you. I think that's I think that's pretty apt, right? Like I watched the game. I watched the first half, and I was like, the first goal shouldn't go in. Harry Wilson's goal should not go in. This is like this misdirected kick coming in off of the wing, just redirected by Harry Wilson, no pace added to it whatsoever, and it goes through Kelleher's legs.
Yeah.
It's like
the first two went through Kelleher's legs.
Yeah. The second one is off of a corner kick, right? Or something like that, right?
I think so.
So that's one of those things where it's like dicey and things are bouncing around and all that sort of stuff, and someone turns quickly and fires it. Like, okay. That's just sloppy Joe Maguli, right? Which is fine. I'm more okay with that. The problem with the first goal is that somebody's not tracking there. It's either Trent or Matip, probably Matip, who's not tracking the runner close enough on Harvey. Or I keep saying Harvey because I'm thinking LA, but Harry Wilson, former Liverpool player. Harry Wilson going to the near post. This is very simple, like elementary school, like football defense here, right? Like,
yeah.
And the truth is, like, just Kelleher's, he's not good enough to be a starting goalkeeper. Everybody's talking about how great he is, like that. Spurs were interested in him this summer, and everybody was like, 20 million's too low for him. I'm like, is it?
Yeah.
I might be a hater, but I was like, It's just backup goalkeepers are a really tough position. Tough position. You got to empathize with them really quite a lot. But if Alisson Becker is in goal for that game, we win at 4-0.
I think so, probably.
I really do. I really believe that.
So now that we got all the hating out of the way, let's talk about the good stuff.
Yeah, so the first goal is an own goal by Leno.
Yeah.
Which it is. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is, but you can't, like, say that in a way that it takes anything away from Alexander-Arnold's free kick, though, right? Because that was just amazing.
Yeah, it's an incredible free kick. I mean, the thing that just... It sucks that he doesn't get the goal. It's really a shame that he doesn't get the goal. It like by the letter of the law, it can't be, because if the goalkeeper was not there, it would have bounced off the crossbar and come back out of the goal.
Yeah.
But it goes into the back of the net just around 23rd, 24th minute, and it was incredible shot. I think that gives him a lot of confidence. I think, can I just say something really quickly that I think could be a little bit controversial, or a little bit of maybe a conspiracy theory or something like that? Because we watched the Predator ad that Adidas dropped about always having this boots in my bag, and it being like representative of like Gerard during Istanbul, and like that he feels like he's coming home wearing the Predators. Like I know that it's marketing shtick, but it's like real. Yeah. Like, he started wearing the Predators. He scored like 3 goals. If you count the own goal, he scored 3 goals in like 3 games since he started wearing the Predators. Not to mention assists. It's like, I think he really is. Yeah. I think he's like legitimately like,
well,
he's like 24 now, right? 24.
I sent you
just turned 25.
That quote by James Pierce, right? That was talking about when Liverpool needed someone to step up and change a game. That was, the domain of Steven Gerrard, and now that's Trent Alexander-Arnold territory,
It's starting. It's sure starting to seem like it. It sure is.
You know,
because,
and honestly, that was one of the first things that really hooked me on Liverpool was watching Gerrard charge around the pitch, taking the game by the scruff of the neck and saying, "I will win this."
yeah,
And he had the ability and, the mental and intestinal fortitude to be able to do that.
yeah. Yeah, it seems like Trent's getting there too. It seems like maybe him getting the vice captaincy is like putting him in a position to really, really come into his own.
Well, we'll get into how that is even more Steven Gerrard territory when we talk about the second half and the tactical changes that were made. But anyway, we have a just absolute worldy free kick from Trent. And then they equalize, right? As we were just talking about.
Yes.
And then Alexis Mac Allister hits an absolute worldie. Okay, so we're back after a brief technical difficulty there. Still ironing things out. Talking
We're
about
figuring it out.
Mac 10's absolute worldie, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so really quickly, I do want to say that leading up to this goal, and this is something that I noticed today on rewatch, is that the first goal that Fulham scores, Harry Wilson, like it's very clear Liverpool to Liverpool in the game and in the way that like the energy of the game is happening. That this is a blip, and that they're just like they're back on the grind immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
They're like not even thinking about it. They're like, okay, well, stuff happens, goals happen. Great. Back to it. And they are just, they heap on just so much pressure for the next 15, 20 minutes, basically.
Yeah.
Until the ball sits up 35 yards out.
I think I saw on Reddit it was 26.8.
Okay, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
But he hits it upper 90.
Yeah, just a laser beam.
Man, incredible. It's his first Liverpool goal.
Yeah, and the longest Liverpool first goal since Divock Origi hit one at like 35 or 32.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Since Klopp's arrival.
Yep.
That's very interesting. That's great. I think it's going to be... I'm super excited. I think that... I think that there's going to be interesting games ahead of us for Mac Allister.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully it's not a detriment and that he's like trying to get more goals into his game. But I think it could be a great confidence booster for him.
Yeah. Well, and just a little more about Mac Allister is I saw one of those like spider web graphs when you compare players, right? And it was comparing Mac Allister, Caicedo, and Declan Rice, right? And the only category that Mac Allister wasn't ahead in was progressive passing percentage. He has considerably more defensive actions than the other two, and I think he was tied on tackles with Caicedo ahead of Declan Rice, right? So,
which makes sense because people are running at Chelsea's defense versus Arsenal's.
Yeah.
But you're singing Mac Allister's praises.
Yeah. The other two big money, big marquee sixes that moved this summer that everybody was ranting and raving about. And then Klopp has reimagined Mac Allister as a six. And it seems so far at this point in the season, despite a few initial hiccups of him still learning the trade, and there's still more for him to learn, but it's really paying off, right? Because Klopp's thing is he provides an additional offensive presence, and he's learning the defense side of the game. And the fact that his defensive actions were considerably higher than the other two.
So you're betting on Mac Allister being our six going forward?
I mean, I honestly think it's either that or, I mean, we'll get to this too, that it's going to be Endo, and it turns out that may not be bad either, because he had a heck of a game.
Yeah, against LASK, or however you say it.
Endo in the Fulham game, kind of key in that.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah.
He put in a couple great tackles, breaking up
That's true.
Fulham attacks. He scored the third goal with an absolute beauty.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't see him taking the starting spot. I just don't see it happening.
I mean, again, we talked about this earlier. It's like it's nice to have different tactical decisions that you can play with based on the personnel you have, right? Like if you need a more defensive bruiser, then yeah, you're gonna want to go with Endo because he's known for running around and putting a tackle in. Yeah. And if you need a more, I don't know, I'll say finesse offensive presence building out of the deep lying midfielder role, then yeah, you go with Mac Allister.
Or Sobetslai. No, not Sobetslai. Bajcetic,
yeah.
He's supposed to be back soon. Yeah. Hopefully we can get some Europa League games going. Okay, Mac Allister puts one in the upper 90 in the 40th or something like that. Pretty close to the 40th. And then Fulham start to grow into the game a little bit, weirdly.
Yeah, but I still feel like almost all three of their goals were against the run of play.
Yeah, they absolutely were. That's why I was saying this. Like, I do not to be a hater, but I do genuinely think that if Alisson Becker was in goal, it's 4-0.
Yeah,
maybe even 5-0, right? Because the thing is, like, it's just like a level of confidence. He stops that first goal from going in. Mac Allister hits the upper 90, so then we're 2-0, and then it's just a landslide. But that didn't turn out, and that's okay. So they end up equalizing before halftime. By the way, right before it, yep. There was 9 minutes stoppage time in the first half because Leno, I think, probably had to get like stitches basically over his eyebrow.
Yeah.
In the first 4 minutes of the game.
It was pretty early on, yeah.
Yeah. So they scored way deep into extra time, and just again sloppy Joe defending, nobody clearing the lines. They just need to get the ball out,
Yeah.
But again, I do think that that's just communication from the goalkeeper. He's our fifth, is the fifth defender back or whatever, right? So, or sixth. So I think communication will get better.
Yeah.
Over the next coming games. That's what I think.
Yeah.
So. And then the halftime comes out, and then we come out like house on fire. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember this exactly, but I think less than 5 minutes in is when Mo Salah and Darwin Núñez have a fast break where they're just out sprinting everybody on the field, and Mo Salah passes it to Darwin Núñez, and he rockets it off the crossbar, like 90 miles an hour off the crossbar.
Yep.
A couple of minutes after that, there's another one where Mo Salah heads in Darwin Núñez right to his feet at the 6-yard box, and Darwin sloppies it up a little bit, I would say.
I don't remember that one. He gets
his legs twisted.
Oh,
and tangled.
That's right. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it is frustrating because Mo Salah put it sorry, but Haaland scores that goal. You know what I mean? But I guess what I'm saying is the most important thing is that we weren't deterred. We came back. We were very excited. We were very on the front foot, and we were pressuring quite a lot, and we were making legitimate opportunities as we were going towards the cop. Crossbar, so many chances. But then after the first 15 minutes of the second half, then Fulham really started to kind of catch our game plan a little bit. Either they caught up to us or we just started to get a little bit winded.
Yeah.
That's the real truth.
I think it, based on how things turned around after the introduction of the subs, is I think they were just starting to get a little winded and maybe a little mentally tired because the subs completely changed the face of the game,
For both teams.
Yeah.
Marco Silva's subs.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
His substitute, like his first subs that comes on scores the third goal, right? So it's like he made some really great tactical changes too. And they were starting to maintain and keep possession. Our midfield, our Eli's first look midfield, started to creak a little bit. There were some spaces, and Szoboszlai comes off really quickly after that, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting that it was Szoboszlai that made way initially.
But Gravenberch, I rewatching it, had a really good game. He's coming into his own.
Yeah.
What is Bayern Munich thinking? Like,
you know what? Oh well, whatever.
Yeah.
Their losses are major gain because he's another one that's going to be just absolutely amazing.
Tremendous player. This is him on the back, and Szoboszlai, Trent coming into his own. This is all me hoping for a Klopp extension here.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that sub because Szoboszlai and who else comes off?
I think it's Nunez.
Yeah, because
Gakpo
it's
comes
Gakpo and Gomez that come on, right?
Yes.
And then that moves Trent. No,
Into
it's
the
McAllister. It's McAllister and Szoboszlai, right? Because then it's Gakpo and Gomez come on,
right?
And Trent moves up to the 6, and Gakpo plays the right side of midfield. Right. Because I think I even texted you at that point that so far, like, Trent is the lone 6 is not working.
Well, you know what's interesting is, like, I was actually thinking that that's what was going to happen, right? That we were going to go to a back four, that we were going to play a 4-3-3, but we didn't. We still played the box midfield. So it wasn't that Trent was alone. Like, I noticed it because, so Joe Gomez is, like, slotting into where Trent usually does, and Trent's taking up McAllister's spot. Right. So they're still playing the box midfield. The problem is like that it just doesn't feel like Joe Gomez isn't Trent and Trent isn't McAllister, I guess is the answer.
Yeah.
So that's when we really started to lose the grip of the game. And they scored a third goal during that. And then we reacted once again and brought on Endo.
Yeah.
And moved Trent up to an 8. That's what happened.
Yeah.
We took out Szoboszlai, brought in Endo, moved up Trent to an 8.
Yep. And then it all just kind of clicks into place.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Like if you actually take a step back and you beg the question, what is Trent Alexander-Arnold's best position? And you would have to pose it in a way to understand that positions in football are meaningless outside of system. And the position that he's the best in is about 45 to 25 yards outside of the goal line on the right-hand side of the field. Mm-hmm. That is his best position because he can whip in crosses, he can cut, he can drive at them, he can go to the byline, he can chop it in. That's his bread and butter. And realistically, that's where 8s play.
Yeah.
That's where he played as a right back until the system changed a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right back would be overlapping, and that would be exactly where it is, which is where Szoboszlai now plays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So moving him up to an 8, not a bad idea. I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out.
But it works because of Endo being a much more front-footed defensive 6, right?
Right.
And Joe Gomez popping up in the 6 too, right? So they're still doing box midfield. Joe Gomez and Endo, the 6s, it's just defense.
Yeah.
Until Endo's like, I take your defense, Nate, and then I also put in a ball in the upper 90.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody was just heaping praise on him after the game. You know, all the players.
Most solid assist,
yeah.
by the way.
All the players are saying, like, what a great guy he is, how he's such a great addition to the team. He's a hard worker. And they were really happy that he got that. And what a shot, too. Just like,
incredible.
Wow. Beautiful curler. You should look up the video of Trent's reaction to it, because Trent's behind him when he hits it. And Trent's reaction is just like, I can't believe what I just saw.
Oh, great. I look forward to seeing it. all of the things that you've just said don't surprise me at all. When we first got him and we were on this podcast talking about the acquisition of Endo, I was singing his praises, talking about him taking up the James Milner role. And somebody on this podcast, and I won't point fingers as to who it was, but it definitely wasn't me, was saying things like, well, but James Milner's won the league and multiple teams and has won Champions League, and Endo's not James Milner. And I was like, I know he's not James Milner, but he's taking up his role, which is what Jordan Henderson was supposed to be doing. But now he's playing in front of 1,000 people. So I'm elated that. By the way, Endo scored in the previous game too, right? Yeah.
Did he score? No, he scored in the game where we beat. Was it Toulouse 5-0?
Something like that.
He scored in that game.
At least he scored 2 in like the last 4 games.
Yeah, he has. It's like
coming off the bench or starting. Look, he's finding his own. I've seen tackles. Go ahead.
No, I've seen a couple interviews with him where he's like, I didn't know how hard the Premier League would be, and it's really taken me time to get adjusted and settled into things, you know.
Yeah, it definitely seems like his rhythm is starting to land a little bit more. I think in the first couple of weeks, the first several games, you could tell that he's just out of rhythm with the pace of the game.
Yeah.
Right? Tackles were a little bit off. His timing was a little off. Interceptions, stepping on the front foot, he's a little off, right? So it seems like he's finding his legs, his sea legs, and he's really finding a spot in this team. Just the fact that he's able to come off the bench. The fact that we went from last season having 9 midfielders, 3 of whom could play on a regular basis, to the fact that we now have Alexis Mac Allister, Ryan Gravenberch, Dominic Szoboszlai, Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, Wataru Endo, all readily available and very good players.
Mm-hmm.
None of that. Curtis Jones is hurt intermittently because of his reoccurring injury, but that's it. We have, obviously Thiago Alcantara, but whatever. Thiago, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Keita, Arthur Melo. 4 players who played almost no minutes last season.
Yeah. Yeah.
We now have, how many did I just name? 6? 7?
Yeah, 6. And sometimes Cody Gakpo.
And Trent, really. Trent is also playing midfielder as well, right? So we've 7. We're talking about 8 people who are readily available to fill in slots whenever we need to make strategic changes, which is incredible luxury. Which is it's almost a miracle that we finished 5th place last year, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're here. We're there. It's officially scores 3-3. It's the 87th minute. Wataru Endo just puts the ball into the upper 90, and what does Mo Salah do? He grabs it from the back of the goal and places it in the middle line, in the center circle, ready to go.
Yep.
3 minutes before full time and extra time. And then what happens?
About 60 seconds later, not even that, I think, Trent Alexand-Arnold once again steps up in his shiny new Predators and wins the game.
Yeah. They're so clean.
Yeah.
They're very cool looking shoes. Do you think that this goal meant anything at all to him? It seemed like
they were all pretty darn excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet the cop was pretty excited too.
Yeah. Somebody said that when Trent scored the winner, they'd never heard noise like they had until they heard the cop at that moment.
It does hurt a little bit knowing that we were supposed to be there.
Yeah. We can't.
But also, I would rather that... You know what? I had this thought this morning in the shower that I was like, oh man, you can't butterfly effect, dude. You can't mess with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Even if we could go back and get tickets.
We can't.
You can't now.
Yeah.
You can't.
Not after that game.
Too risky. What are your big takeaways from this game?
So I touched on earlier is that we may be overly reliant on Allison Becker continuing to bail out what is still maybe a bit of a shaky defense, right? And those issues were present before Robertson got hurt, right? Because there were a couple that we conceded where it was kind of like, what's Robertson doing here? So you can't like pin it all onto Mikas and Matip. And I think you and I talked about earlier that Matip is kind of like the easy target of the weak link in our defense, but he's been great the last few games. It sounds like he may be out for a while though.
Knee issue, yeah, it's not good. It's going to be bad.
And I really like Konate, and I think there's a great player in there, but he's still, figuring things out. He is prone to, a momentary lapse in judgment or, some other things. He is amazingly fast though, which is great. But I think my takeaways are the defense still has work to do. And, man, the front six, I guess 6.5 if you include Trent moving into the box midfield, is super exciting. And it's really like, the front 9 or 10, honestly, because when you look at the bench options we can bring in, it sounds like Jota may be out for a bit longer than Allison is. I think Allison's out for like another week and a half maybe, based on the initial estimate. And Klopp said Jota's was a little bit worse than that, so we probably got a couple more weeks till Jota's back. But still, again, Cody Gakpo, great deputy to bring in or start, depending on what you need.
100%. 100%. And I just also, so I want to point out something, just talking about your takeaway as far as our defense, right? So I just want to point out that the two other teams that are also playing box midfield in this league, Arsenal, have conceded 11 goals in 14 games, right?
How many have we conceded?
We've conceded 14 goals in 14 games.
Okay. And how many have City conceded?
16 goals in 14 games. So just wanted to put that in perspective. While I agree with you, the big issue here is that the box midfield, when we inherently, by virtue of removing a defender to push up forward, if you lose the ball at the wrong time, you are susceptible to counterattack. And clearly the managers who are playing it are taking the risk to let in some goals, but also are betting on themselves to score more. Yeah. For example, City have allowed 16 goals, but have scored 36.
Right.
We have scored 32 goals in 14 games. Arsenal has scored 29 goals, but only allowed 11, right? That's why they sit at the top. The thing is that they're a little bit more solid defensively, right? Because Rice is kind of sitting back with them. And the truth is I haven't really been watching them this season, so I don't even know if they're playing box midfield anymore, if Zinchenko is like sliding in, or if he even plays.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. But I will say that Man City definitely plays it, and you can see the pitfalls of playing this style of football. But you can also see the positives of it, because you're overloading the offensive line, right?
Right.
Because the thing is, like just if you just think about the last 3 games that City has played, they tied Chelsea 4-4.
Yeah.
They shipped 4 goals. They drew 1-1 against us. They just drew Spurs 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, like, we have defensive fragilities. I agree with you. My personal feeling is that a left-footed center back is the solution to our problem, so that Konate does not have to cover as much ground, or Matip, because we're playing 3 at the back.
Right.
right? What's happening right now is that we're playing three sort of listing towards the left. We need an Ake. We need a Guardiol, right? That's my personal opinion. If that happens, who knows? But I just think it seems like we're shipping a lot of goals, and we're making these goals that we let in this past week. I agree, we're sloppy Joe. But just to compare this to the other top of the table, we're not doing that bad.
Yeah, that's true. So I think we should move to wrapping it up here. There is one thing I wanted to touch on that has been kind of a recurring topic, and that is refs being the center of attention at the end of the weekend when everything's said and done, right?
Sure.
Because we look at, so Simon Hooper, who was in charge of the City Spurs game yesterday, is the same guy that botched our game against Spurs. And it just seems that it's unfortunate that when we're, punditry is looking back at the weekend, that the big talking points are reffing decisions and not 3 worldies, to win a game in the dying moments,
Yeah, you're so let me see that I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is that Liverpool's not getting a ton of coverage, even though we had like sort of incredible goals and a very thrilling game, even though there is much criticism to our defense. A very thrilling game that would be an incredible advertisement for the Premier League,
right?
Which is like a team sitting at, and let me just double check really quickly, a team sitting in 14th place, playing the second place team, and it was an absolute barn burner.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Is overshadowed by the fact that this ref made an incorrect decision in the Man City Spurs game.
Well, and to be honest, I only watched the last few minutes of that. So I didn't really see how his performance was throughout the game. But, I mean, the couple of City fans that I've talked to were just incensed that, Grealish didn't get to play advantage on his breakaway. If you can call it that.
I agree. Look, I agree with them. I'm of the mind that is when something is wrong, we should say it. But nobody else's fans are interested in that. When we played Spurs and our goal was disallowed, when it was clearly a legitimate goal and they knew they were wrong and they kept playing the game anyway, that's an issue. When Arsenal last season were on a title run and they had a goal taken away against Brentford when it was declared offsides, but it was not offsides, that's an issue.
Yeah.
Right? The truth is, this was a bad call. It was wrong. I think...
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I think the difference is that it was a wrong call from the center ref in the heat of the game. I think fans get more upset when it's relitigated by a bunch of people sitting behind monitors somewhere and they get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? That's an issue. This was a mistake. And the old adage was these things like work themselves out over a season.
Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, exactly. And so the thing is like, I have sympathy for the City fans, but I'm also sort of like, it happens.
Yeah.
Mistakes happen.
It's sport. It's what builds part of the drama.
Right. And when we felt like we were aggrieved, everybody else's fan base and team told us to like put on your big boy pants.
Yep.
Deal with it. So sorry that Jack Grealish didn't get a 40-yard one-on-one he's never scoring that goal. I'm sorry. He's not going to score the goal. He's not going to do it.
Yeah.
He's not going to take the ball on the 40-yard line and have a quote-unquote breakaway. There were 3 Spurs defenders within arm-touching distance of him when he received the ball.
Right.
We're talking about seconds left in the game. You're trying to tell me that one of them's just not going to go through him? to prevent the goal and take the red. And then they're like, well, then he'd be on a red card. It's like, okay, sure. But the truth is, like, I'm sorry. If the goal was in the back of the net and then something happened, okay, feel aggrieved. But, like, you're talking, like, there's so many ifs.
Right.
About this whole thing. It's like, okay, I get it. Be angry. That's fine. But I think that's why we like the game. Is because there's drama. Yeah. There's conflict. Right? So I think they should be angry. I think they have perfect reason to be angry. I think I will forget about it when we play our next game on Wednesday.
Yep. Oh, speaking of which, Sheffield sacked their manager.
Yeah, of course. So whenever somebody in the bottom 5 play Liverpool and they've got a couple of bad runs, they always sack their manager right before they play us to make sure that they get the new manager bounce.
Yep.
Word on the street, Chris Wilder might be coming back.
Really?
That's what I heard on the news today.
Who
knows if it's a legit source or not, but I'm going to keep perpetuating it online.
Yep. To our thousands of listeners, spread the misinformation.
Like, be sure to upvote this on Reddit and like tell everybody Chris Wilder, new Sheffield United manager. You heard it here. Exclusive.
So we got a couple minutes here. I thought it would be interesting to. I posted a short when you were listing off the Premier League greats, and a good friend of ours asked why Arsene Wenger wasn't in the conversation, to which I just replied the crying laughy emoji. And then another guy I know from college was saying, like, oh, I don't think Klopp's anywhere close to it, and he shouldn't be. And I asked him to explain, and he's like, well, it's different eras, so you can't compare people and some other stuff. And I was like, I think a trophy cabinets tend to transcend era. That's like kind of the one constant, because your success is relative to your era. So success is kind of timeless.
Success, yeah. It's relative to the challenges of your time, yeah.
So it was just, it was kind of interesting because I was like, I mean, I look at, for me, a great manager not only has success, but to really be elevated into that GOAT status, they also need to be responsible for like a paradigm shift in how the game is played. And if you look at the big managers in history, like Herrera, I'm going to butcher his name, but it's like Lubianski from Dynamo Kiev, Rene Mikkels at Ajax, who developed Total Football, and then Cruyff, and then Sachi, and then you have Pep and Klopp. And, Pep is a great tactician, but he's also spent the last how many years at a team that has been cheating, almost beyond belief. And in that time, Klopp is the only one that has been able to keep up with Pep's financial doping, basically. And I'm sure the City fans that tune in will be like, oh, he doesn't know anything about it. He's, squeaky clean. It's like, I don't know about all that, but he is reaping the rewards of those nefarious tactics.
Well, let me just say this. Based on your criteria of what a generational talent as a manager is, then Arsene Wenger is one of those.
Yeah, I mean, right? it is fair that Arsene Wenger should probably be in the list of top 5 Premier League managers. He doesn't have a Champions League. But he has the only undefeated team.
He's the Invincibles.
The Invincibles. He's the only one in the Premier League era that has done that. And then based on that infographic I sent you, like Klopp and Ferguson have each managed 8 consecutive seasons with 20-plus wins, and Arsene Wenger's at like 13. 13 seasons with 20-plus wins. Yeah,
I mean, look, Arsene Wenger was an incredible manager. I mean, the truth is that it's like for vast majorities of the 90s and the early to mid 2000s, it was just Arsene Wenger and Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
Those were the two people that was it, right? And he should have been included in the short that we had posted, but literally it just slipped my mind because it's been, I don't know,
it's been
so
a
many
long
years.
Time.
It's been a while since
long time, yeah.
And also in my defense, when we started to become Liverpool fans, that was like the very, very end of Arsene Wenger winning anything. Like
Yeah,
Arsene
that's
Wenger
true.
stuck around for like another 8 seasons having won nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe an FA Cup, right? But that's not a fair analysis or sort of like look at what he did. The thing that caused me to say all this was when you said their perspective or their playing style or their voice as a manager creates a paradigm shift in football. And Arsene Wenger absolutely had that. Like
Yeah.
the idea that tiki-taki football is like a thing that's synonymous with Arsenal now is because of him,
Yeah.
right? There's an argument that it actually shifted the paradigm in Arsenal to the negative, right? Because when he took over the team, they were a bunch of big, bully sort of like hard men, right?
Yeah.
And then he started to incorporate hard men with tiki-taki football, finesse French players that he was bringing over from France. And, for a decade, that's when they got just really successful.
Yeah.
Really successful. But when he stopped replacing those hard men, right?
Yeah.
That's when they started to like perpetually finish in the top four, which at the time when we were beginning to be Liverpool fans, we would have snapped your arm off to have.
Yeah.
But they weren't doing much more than just finishing top four from when. That's how I associate with them, right? With him. But yeah, he's a great manager. He obviously paradigm shifted a lot, right?
Yeah.
But I sort of just I understand why people would say that Klopp is not there yet, and I kind of agree with them because he just needs more trophies. He needs more prems. He just does.
Yeah.
Like the truth is, like if he ends his run at Liverpool having won one Premier League, you're like, yeah, he was a great manager of that generation. I just think it would be really hard to say that he's one of the greatest of all time. Fergie has 13.
Yeah. But I mean,
Pep has 3 in a row right now, just in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he's probably got like what, 6?
I think it is 6 now, right? No, is it 5? Because it's 5 in 6 years.
Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, I don't know. It's comparing any manager pre Abramovich and big money football is different than post Abramovich and big money football, right? And that's because Man U was able to sustain itself as a powerhouse for so long because they had a global market and they were the biggest team in the Premier League. It was like this self-perpetuating monster that just kept growing and growing. And once Abramovich came in and other owners came in and just started dumping billions into the clubs, it became more difficult for a team to establish that kind of dynasty. City's trying real hard right now, but we'll see what happens because Pep's not going to stick around as long as Fergie did.
No.
So
no.
And especially if these financial fair play or whatever it's called now charges, anything ever comes of that, that's going to hamper what they can do moving forward. So, and it's going to kind of tarnish. I mean, we all know what's been going on based off what we've heard, but it does feel like there should be an asterisk next to those Premier League titles,
Yeah, I mean, they're never going to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be interesting to see how things kind of move forward, and yeah, I don't know. It is tough though, because like sort of we started this this discussion early on about the idea is like you have to judge a manager within the era that they're participating in, and these managers that we're talking about now have just have come to the elite level post Abramovich.
Yeah.
They're just like, that's the world that they live in.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like sort of like, it's like their teams are able to do financial steroids.
Right.
So it's just like who's just doing the most steroids.
Mm-hmm.
But look, that this isn't only the Premier League, right? Like Klopp had to deal with that whenever he was doing Dortmund versus Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
And he was able to do it several times there as well. So, yeah. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah,
I think that he's one of the greatest managers. He is one of the greatest managers. It would just be easier to make that argument if we could get a couple more
major trophies.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, another, like, a couple domestic cups would be nice, but you feel like it's got to be a league title and a Champions League.
I mean, I personally do because it's such a big deal for Liverpool,
Yeah.
right? Like a Prem title is such a big deal for us because of its absence for such a long period of time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that, sorry, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I've just started watching the Beckham documentary on Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting, by the way. And there's a quote in there where he's talking to the camera and he's just like, winning the Premier League title is great, but winning the FA Cup is really, and I was like, oh my God, what a place of privilege that you're just, that your team is winning so many Premier League titles that you're like, FA Cup is great. But also, we just don't care about the FA Cup that much. So it's just funny to hear different generations because it's like such a British cup.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, sure,
Whatever.
Win the title. Anyway, I just thought that was really interesting.
It is.
Is it about time to wrap it up?
I think it is. I said we were about done 20 minutes ago. And
then you dropped a huge bomb on us.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for sticking along with us. This has been, we've made it happen tonight. We've got through it. You know what I mean? Couple games, couple hypothetical questions. We did it. I think we're feeling pretty good about our chances here towards the back half of the season. Not only for Liverpool Football Club, but I think for this podcast. Feeling pretty good.
Yeah. I'm having a blast.
I am too. This is really fun, and I'm glad that we're doing it. All right, guys, stick with us. We're going to keep doing this, at some point during the week. We'll see if we put up another episode for Sheffield because it's coming thick and fast. It's holiday season time.
Yeah.
Until the next one, we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.